an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood. Episode 13, Beasts of Dublin. In this episode, our boys get expelled. And it's honestly, really jarring and weird. And I have a lot of questions about, did I miss something somewhere? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. What's up, Max, if you're out there? So, yeah, guys, did I miss something? Because this episode starts really abruptly with their teacher telling them that she does not agree with their decision and that they are expelled, and she doesn't teach alchemy to scum like them. Because they did something that she also did. Am I missing something? Is there something else that she's mad about? Because she says, it starts off with, you saw it and survived. I don't think you even know how impressive that is. She's talking about that, the other side, right? So why is she... Oh, Candace says she super hates the cops. And she knows what she did was bad and can't cope with them doing it too, I guess. Then what is she talking about with, that's not even mentioned. The episode opens with, to think you saw it and managed to survive. I doubt you even know how impressive that is. And then she turns around and says, I can't accept the decision you made. You're expelled. I don't teach alchemy to scum like you. That's how that goes. There's no mention of them being state alchemists. So, Candace, I am willing to accept your explanation because in context that makes sense, but there is no way I would have put that together if you weren't explicitly telling me this. That isn't in that script at all. I don't know if it's just maybe it's in the translation that it sort of gets lost and the dub doesn't make up for that in any way. But truly, it isn't even I had no idea what was going on. I genuinely, guys, no joke, pressed stop and went and double checked what the last episode was because I was concerned that I had jumped an episode ahead. I just felt like I completely did not know what was going on here. And her anger is so acute that I was just clearly... There was an episode in between where they did something really fucked up. I don't know, because she talks with them about them, breaking the taboo and trying, and she doesn't have this attitude in the midst of that conversation. So for her to turn the corner and suddenly be angry with them about that felt like, where the hell did that come from? So, Candace says she called the military dogs last episode. Okay, I don't remember that, but I believe you. Candace says, I agree this was presented weird. Yeah, it's just a weird thing. If you're gonna have that be it, she really needs to make that clear. I don't know why they set it up this way. Just have her say, I don't teach alchemy to military dogs like you. That's literally all you'd have to do. And all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, okay. But yeah, I just completely did not get that. So now that I understand that, I'm on your side, sis. I've been saying this was not the right call for them. They shouldn't have done it. I don't like it. I don't like that fucking Colonel Mustard got them in on this. I think he is highly suspect. I am not a fan of the fact that Ed just doesn't seem to be at all concerned with what the alchemists have done in the past and what he's sort of complicit in being a part of this. There is just so much about all of this that I feel is really like not great. And I love that she isn't okay with it. I just wish it were presented in a way where I knew that that was what was happening at the time, because the whole episode, I thought she had expelled them because they committed the taboo. That's what I thought this whole episode. So I was just kind of like, what the fuck? You did it too. What is your problem? So anyway, they leave, and finally her husband is like, hey, idiots, you are able to talk to Izumi as equals now because you're not students. So what the fuck are you doing just getting on a train because she said so, like a couple of pussies? Go back and talk to her about what the fuck is going on. And we get a pretty interesting conversation here. First, she throws a knife directly at Ed, and then he yells at her and tells her, we aren't leaving until you help us. And they face down for a minute, and finally she just closes her eyes and is like, ugh, fine. So then they start talking about Al. Uh-oh. Are you guys still there? Can you see me? I lost you all. Is that because she lost parts of her internal organs and Ed lost an arm and a leg in exchange for getting to see the truth, but Al lost his entire body. She thinks that means he saw the truth also, and maybe saw more than even she and Ed did, but just doesn't remember for whatever reason, whether that's like a side effect of losing his body or, you know, some protection in place from truth itself, who knows. But her theory is, you made a bigger exchange than the two of us did. And it doesn't seem like it was an equal exchange, which is like part of the way this is meant to work, unless you got something back from it. So maybe we just have to figure out how to like get your memory back. Now, the reason that this never occurred to me was that I thought essentially the spell went wrong somehow. He died. And Al's trade for getting his, like, brother's soul back was his arm. But not that his body was taken as payment for something. And I may be right in my original assumption, but they seem pretty, like, compelled by their theory, and it really is at this point kind of all Al has to go on. So, you know, it makes sense that he would be very willing to entertain this theory. I very much understand it. And I'm not even saying that it's unlikely. It's just that I thought basically what Ed was doing without realizing it, because of the way Al is like partially in the circle at the time and everything, was that Ed unwittingly began to sacrifice his brother for his mother. Like, now we know that it's a human life in exchange, and his brother very nearly died. So the way I had been reading it is, he started to sacrifice his brother without knowing that was what he was doing, and that it might have actually worked, and then does backsies and sacrifices part of himself in order to get his brother back. That said, if I go back and watch the sequence where we actually see how it all worked, I feel like Ed saw the creepy, like, fucked up figure that was supposed to be his mom before, like, I guess after Al disappears and before he decides to sacrifice his arm. So my theory on it may have worked actually if he hadn't like stopped because Al was in trouble, might not hold any water if this like creepy demon version of his mom was already there. Like it's just a matter of sort of like the timing of that as to whether or not I buy that theory from myself. And either way, it isn't super important, but I'm just trying to explain to you guys where I was coming from. And this just never even occurred to me. And, I was even not sure whether or not Ed had told Al about seeing the truth and all of that. So I'm pretty into this idea. I don't know what it would mean, though. Like, if Al did see the truth and saw more of it than either of them, then, like, I mean, that would be cool and everything. But what they're trying to say, when you get down to it, is that maybe some of the truth that you saw will help us figure out how to, create a philosopher's stone. And my thing is, like, I don't see, and I might be wrong. Again, everything I'm saying might be totally incorrect. I'm spitballing. That's how I do. I don't see taking his memory of the truth away unless there is something in that memory that can undo the bargain that he made to begin with. So they might be right about it. And that in that memory is, information about the Philosopher's Stone. But if there isn't, let's say he did see the truth, but that information isn't there. Did Ed make the sacrifice voluntarily the way that Ed did? Like, I mean, this is the thing I keep coming up against, because Ed definitely willingly sacrificed his arm. He said out loud, "Take my arm, take whatever. I just want my brother." He said those words. That's what he wanted. His leg, it feels more like by committing the taboo at all, you are tacitly agreeing to sacrificing whatever the fuck truth decides you're sacrificing. You don't get to say no because you did the thing to begin with, and that is it, my friend. And now it's done and you don't get a say anymore. So if Ed is the one who was creating the circle and he got targeted, would Al be considered like as guilty as Ed? There's a lot about the way that this works that I'm not sure, who would be the person who's sort of targeted. And just overall, I don't get why Al's memory would be erased otherwise either. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We'll see, I'm just wanting to express my different, like, conflicting theories and the way that my mind worked on this initially. Because she's thinking that maybe Al just lost his memory from shock and that it wasn't, like, truth that took his memory away. Maybe? I guess. Like, I don't know. It's just I don't know. I truly don't. So I love when they're talking about how he might have to, like, see truth again. And by basically, if they, like, bring his memory back and he did in fact see truth, he will have to go through the trauma of seeing it again. And how incredibly, like, fucked up it was for each of them to see truth. And if Al spent even more time with it than either of them did, it's going to be, like, so much worse for him. This is so funny to me. She's just like, bad. No, it's more like awful. And she, like, waves her arms, and then Ed waves his arms. It could drive you insane or even leave you brain dead. And eventually it ends with Al saying, "It doesn't matter. I want to do it," which of course he's going to say. yeah, this bit is okay. She, of course, Al is going to say it's worth it, but Al, I'm not going to say this to Al, okay? Because I don't want to upset the cinnamon roll. Nobody wants that. I think it's fair that they're trying to warn him about what he could be potentially agreeing to. But what if your memory comes back and it does cause you to be brain dead and you have your body back, but you're brain dead now? Food for thought. I'm just saying. You know, later on, somebody tells him, it looks like you kind of have the perfect body. And for a second, I was like, word? And then he says, you don't even need to use the toilet. And I was like, oh, fuck, you really got me with that one, man. He got to my exact, like, complaint about the fucking human body. And I really, truly had a moment of just like, you know, I was saying how much it's awful that he can't eat ever again. And I, like, truly, that is absolutely tragic. But not having to use the bathroom ever again, I don't know, man. That's pretty good. I really resent the whole maintenance of the body that we have to deal with. I truly just I don't like it. I don't like it. I didn't agree to it. Like, this was done to me. What the fuck, you know? So, I don't know. Anyway. So this is when she says, let's eat dinner first. Give me a hand. And it's just funny to me how completely her attitude changes when she's like going to talk about food, because she's a woman after my own heart. So then we go to the outside and there's this fucking dude with a hood leaning over the edge of the door. So it's true. He's able to transmute human souls. And then he climbs away with like an iguana tail sticking out of the bottom of his cloak up the wall. And I truly was so unnerved by this, you guys. There have been so many like weird creatures and upsetting shit on this show, but for some reason, this one like really got to me bad. I don't know. It's just like, I think that it's because my initial assumption was that this was done to him the way that it was with what's-his-face's daughter. And the way he was talking felt like he was not in his right mind. You know, it felt almost like he was a puppet somehow. And once we like meet the others later, it's clear that this guy is just kind of a weirdo. Like, it's not that this is a result of being a chimera necessarily. It's just the guy's like strange. And some of them seem a lot more normal. But this just really creeped me out bad. So we cut from here to Colonel Mustard, and he is playing chess across from General Grumman. And they're talking about the fact that the colonel is going to be transferring. And Grumman is like expressing some regret over the fact that he's leaving because he brought some color to this dreary desert, as he says it. Y'all, I'm sorry. He did? Colonel Mustard. He brought some color. Where? What? I don't think so. Not that guy. No, he did not. Like, come on. that's not how that went at all. And it ends with him saying, as long as you are being generous, because this guy like basically claims I let you win. He says, well, if you're being generous, there is something else that I would like to ask for. And then he like assembles his team. Master Sergeant Kane Fury, Warrant Officer, Second Lieutenant, etc., etc. And of course, Hawkeye, First Lieutenant. Gather up your things. All 5 of you are transferring to Central with me and no objections. And this one guy doesn't understand what no objections means. And he says, I just started dating this girl and I really like her. And Colonel Mustard just says, dump her. And honestly, that was just so fun. I really like that he turns and says it, and there's a speech bubble with the characters in Japanese, which I assume say, dump her. And I really wish that there was an equivalent one for dump him, because I would use that as a reaction meme on like literally every Am I the Asshole post that I saw on Facebook. You can't use that kind of thing on Reddit. It's very annoying. But I would use it all over Facebook, because dump him is like the advice I give probably the most. And it would just be extremely useful for me. So that is like, I think, the only scene that we get back at the state headquarters. And then we go to Scar. Scar is using a dumbbell. Guys, I'm sorry, but this was so fucking funny to me. He is using a dumbbell that is made from like a twig with 2 rocks on either end. And I don't know why, like, you could just literally lift an object. You don't need to like make a dumbbell out of rocks. I don't know why this cracked me up. Like, just go get like a pot full of water or something, dude. I don't know. So he is weightlifting and looking real fucking intense the way he does. And the kid comes in and is like, dude, what the fuck? We keep telling you not to push it because your wounds need time to heal. And for that, you need rest. And you are going to like pop your stitches and put you back in. You're already impatient. So why are you doing this and setting yourself back? And this is a question I am sure that many medical professionals have asked people who just like will not fucking chill. And then all of a sudden, his master comes in, whom he apparently thought had died. And this dude is like, look, man, I totally get why you're mad. These state alchemists are pieces of shit. I'm not trying to argue with you about that. But what you're doing is just going to fuck it up even worse. Like, we truly are never going to be free of this if you keep trying to push it the way that you are. It's causing, like, further violence. The cycle is just going to perpetuate itself. You got to stop, man. You're not accomplishing anything here except trying to make yourself feel better. It's just senseless. And Scar just absorbs this and doesn't argue, which I was truly surprised by. Like, he doesn't say anything in his own defense at all. But then they get interrupted by a couple of fucking mooks who show up to collect a bounty. Look, he really is here. He's got the scar and everything. We'll split the bounty 3 ways with you. Hey, what? And this guy turns around to look for his compatriot who has hidden behind a piece of like wall that's still standing. And apparently this guy's name is Yoki. He's got one of those little pencil thin mustaches that is like shorthand usually for this man cannot be trusted. And that can cover all kinds of things. He can't be trusted because he's a con man. He can't be trusted because he's a weasel. He can't be trusted because he's like a, what is it that they call it when a guy is like Lothario, right? Is that what they say when a guy is like notorious for seducing women? There are all kinds of things that pencil thin mustache can signify, but it never is anything good. I have never seen a cartoon character with that kind of mustache who wasn't like real shady in one direction or another. And so this guy, oh my God, Kyle calls him a Waluigi ass motherfucker. That I never even thought about it, but Waluigi. Yeah, another one. The guy that he makes me think of here is, I can't remember his name, from Legend of Korra, who owns the, like, huge company that does all kinds of inventions and stuff. I can't remember his name. But yeah, as much as I adore that character, he is a very sketchy man. So this dude apparently got, like, taken in by all of these Ishvalans, and this guy, y'all, everybody's like, we took you in, we treated you like family, and he says this with words and his own mouth. I didn't even want anything to do with the Ishvalans to begin with. You lost the war, and then follows it with, I'll rise again. I'll rise up. I will rise and I'll use my power to annihilate Edward Elric. Who the fuck are you? And why, for the love that all that is good and holy, does Scar not kill him? Scar comes out and absolutely fucks up these two mooks that came for him. No problem. One loses a hand. I'm assuming he dies from blood loss, but maybe he just lost his hand. And the other one, he, like, electrocutes in the face. And then he stands up against this guy face to face and does nothing. This man just, like, shit-talked Ishvalans for losing the war, betrayed you personally, and then talked about how he is going to rise again. It really feels like they should be on the top of your I'm going to kill you list. I don't know. That's just me. I don't understand why he doesn't kill this guy. Like, is it supposed to be that he's sort of internalizing what his master just said to him? Because if so, I guess it just feels like not killing him after you were totally fine with killing the bounty hunter guys seems a little bit weird, you know? But, like, I don't know. I found it sort of weird that he lets this dude go without any comment, especially considering that we don't see him respond really to his master's accusations. He just sort of lowers his head and looks like, I don't even know if I want to say penitent, like pensive, really. It's like he's considering it, but I couldn't tell whether he agreed or not. I assumed he was going to argue and be like, nah, I'm going to do what I'm going to fucking do. Damien says cut content for some... Oh, I thought when you said cut content, I was like, he killed him and they cut it? Why? For some reason, they cut out his initial encounter with Ed. Oh, Yoki. Kyle says, Yoki was one of the guys on the wanted posters from 2 episodes ago, by the way. He's from that incident that happened off screen that was mentioned earlier that was part of the manga that they didn't adapt in this show. Oh, the third guy on the posters. I forgot about that guy. All right, so we have Scar is the first guy. He's the third guy. Is the second guy the homunculus that we meet this episode? I don't even remember what he looked like. Just that he had, like, sort of a fucking I'm a cool guy vibe. And the homunculus has also got an I'm the cool guy vibe. So Jaggy says, Scar be like, you're not even worth my time, you little piece of shit. I mean, but who, like, how does he determine that? It just feels like this episode, there are a few things that they really needed to, like, spell out a little bit more. And it's confusing when they do. I will never get over the fact that they don't have the teacher, like, explain why she won't teach them. That is so confusing. Damien says season 1, episode 9 is recommended viewing for that backstory of the original Fullmetal Alchemist. Okay. Actually, that brings me to something. So there's been a listener who got in touch, guys, and I'm curious for your judgment on this, because I don't really know whether or not this is a good idea. So I'm interested in your feedback. There is somebody who is interested in commissioning the original series. They wouldn't be able to start until November. So it would be a while away, and it would definitely be after I completely finished this series. So it's not like it would spoil anything, but it just sort of strikes me as I have plenty to talk about when I am totally unspoiled, but I don't know if the original series is different enough that I'm going to have enough to speak on for an hour per episode when it's the same series, just tweaked slightly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just curious about how you all see the original series and whether it's different enough to warrant separate coverage, and, just overall your impression about that idea, because they're asking whether I would be willing to do it. And I really want a better sense of it before I say, because I'm not against the idea of covering two different versions of something if it really feels like there's enough substance there. But I don't know anything about why the original is so different. I just know that a lot of people prefer this version. Let's see. Damien says, up until episode 25 of the OG series, they're similar. After that, the anime caught up to the manga and they went off rails. With Arakawa Sensei's permission. Kyle says, I would say it's different enough. All right. Well, chime in, guys, because I'm going to be taking feedback on that, for probably another week or so. I'm going to, like I said, they wouldn't be able to book to start until at least November. So there's a while there for me to decide whether I want to do it or not. But, it's mostly I just want to be sure that it would be something that would be interesting to talk about for an hour, because I have been so lucky with Spoil Me that everything that I've been commissioned to cover, except for two things, has been stuff that it's been really easy for me to talk about. It's been stuff that's fun or interesting, or if it's not, it's at least not fun or not interesting in a way that is fun and interesting to talk about still. And I just want to make sure that I'm not going to wind up agreeing to something where 20 minutes in, I'm well, that's about all I've got to say about that. So, okay, back to this, this moment. So that's right. Scar kills the one guy by electrocuting him to the face. I think he kills him. He may not have killed him. He may have just really badly injured him. And he walks up to this dude who says, spare my life, I'll do anything. And he bends down and he picks up the glasses that one of these guys was wearing. And I was sort of excited about that because, like I said, guys, he doesn't seem familiar to me without his glasses. So this is obviously the look that he goes for. And I feel like it really works for him. So I'm pleased to see that he's, making an effort to return to that. So he picks the glasses up and walks away. And his master says, you're leaving then. Your brother would be sad. And Scar puts the glasses on and then says, it's too late to turn back now. And he keeps walking. And again, if it's too late to turn back now, you should definitely kill that one guy because he sucks. I hate him. He runs after Scar. And I'm if they team up, I am not interested. I don't want anything. I don't want this man on my screen again. He sucks. Okay. So this is when we get to poor Al getting taken in like the little cinnamon roll he is. So Al gets a note thrown at him in the street. And, I say taken in. It's not really fair because this dude could handle himself mostly. So it really does make sense that he thinks he's going to be able to handle whoever comes at him, especially when they look like three just like ordinary weirdos. And yet, I just don't like him walking into a place without any backup, like knowingly, like at least tell somebody where you're going, you know? And this guy says, why don't you come with us? My teacher always said I'm not supposed to go with strangers. How old are you? 14. And the guy's like, well, come on. Then you're old enough to think for yourself. And Al, I love this guy so much. You think so? I should think for myself? And then he just knees the guy in the face. Y'all, that was so good. This made me so happy. I swear to God, I love Al so much. If anything ever happens to him, I am going to quit the show. And you guys should know that right now. Okay? If anything happens to Al, I am going to quit. I will never watch another episode. Okay? So I hope that you all understand, because this is a non-negotiable for me. Just saying. Okay, so they say, so you want to do this by force? Guy leaps up. He's got a sword. He gets bashed in the face yet again, but he does manage to pull Al's head off so that a lady can jump inside of Al's armor. I cannot tell you guys how concerned I was that she was going to damage the blood sigil thing, the blood rune. I really hated this. I got so, like, she could do it by accident. She's inside just flailing around. Her back could just rub up against it. It's just blood. That'll flake right off. It's not like it's Sharpie or something. Oof. This really, like, truly, really, really scared me. And, so she, like, fills the body with her own body. And she's like, all I'm trying to do is slow you down a little. I don't have to keep this up for that long. And then this other dude comes up and is like, yeah, now it's my turn. And he wrestles Al to the ground. This guy is beefy. He a beefcake. Very wrestly type. We find out later that he's been mixed with, like, cow. But the lizard person, they have a tail. And nobody else really seems to have any, like, marks on them to indicate what creature they are linked with. Like, you know, the girl who's a snake, she's got some tattoos on her. And I don't know if that's supposed to be it. Like, those are the, like, snake-like markings. But otherwise, even, like, cow guy, it's just, is it just supposed to be that he's big and has wide shoulders or something? I don't know. So this is when they tell Al that they're chimeras. They have him, like, in a separate room. And Al is like, that's not possible. Chimeras that talk, like, that's not even a thing that, oh my God, I didn't even think of it. Zitjagis is literally beefy. I'm so mad at myself that I just didn't see that. Oh, Zitjagi, thank you for stopping me before I just, like, clean walked past that. Wow, I'm so ashamed of myself. Okay. So this dude is like, you can't believe everything the government tells you, kid. You've got all the proof inside you that you need right now. The girl in there is part snake. This guy right here, Roa, what were you made with? Cow? Yeah. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, the way he just goes, yeah. We've also got a lizard and a crocodile, and the little runt that you took down earlier tends to lift his leg when he pees. Only once! Y'all. I love jokes like that. One time! So this dude is Greed. I don't know what to do with this, because he says he's a homunculus, which I didn't expect Greed to be anything other than a godlike being of some kind. I say godlike because I don't really have a better word, but you know, like Lust is walking around just like creating knives from her hands in these weird ways. We've got what do you call it, dude? Oh my God, Gluttony, who can apparently just like eat full fucking human bodies with like not a stomach that looks like it could handle that, but can clearly. Envy can turn into other people. Those all feel like powers in a very specific way. And what this guy can do, while it is a power to a point, it also feels like it's got a significant drawback based on the way that like Ed manages to take him down later. And it just doesn't feel like maybe it's just that I haven't seen the like downsides of what envy and lust can do. Gluttony, I don't know what to do with Gluttony. Gluttony's like a pet. He's like not even, you know what I mean? But it just feels like this guy has much more of an Achilles heel than I have seen with the others. And he's saying he is a homunculus, like he is a created being from alchemy. And I can't tell if that's actually true or if he is just saying that in order to get this like ragtag bunch of weirdos on his side to follow him around. Or maybe he was like a body like the others at one point and then got turned into, because like he says something at one point about how he's not part of the rest of his old crowd for reasons. And like, I can't remember the exact line of dialogue, but there's a subtext that he had a falling out with like the rest of his people. And maybe that has to do with why he is in this like weird version of himself. Because if you're going to like, if you guys were going to think about greed and the way greed works, if they were to have a body, just being able to like put a sort of shell of armor around yourself, I don't know that that feels like a particularly greed-like trait. Envy turning into other people, that kind of makes sense. You look at other people, you wish you had what they had, turn into them, you know? Even lust, there's something about like the sharpness of it, the suddenness of it, of being like, you know, struck by it in a way that's, I don't know, sort of without warning. There's something that feels sort of right about that too. I just don't get this guy and his connection to the others. And plus, a homunculus is not a chimera. So there's a sort of connection he's trying to make here that feels to me like that's not really anything. But, you know, that might just be like me not getting it. So this conversation is so weird. Al is just like, who would even do this? And Greed says the military. And he's like, well, yeah, there's a shadow world beneath yours that's packed with the impossible. I mean, honestly, it's kind of weird to me that you don't understand that this is possible when you're like a suit that's just connected to a suit of armor. Truly, why wouldn't you think that we could do all kinds of stuff more than what we have seen when you didn't know that this was possible like several years back, you know? Which is a fair question. That's always one of those things that you come up against in fantasy is people like not believing shit for no reason. You know, you've got literal magic happening in front of you, but then people are going, that's impossible. It's like, why? Like, why is that where we draw the line? If it like violates a rule that we already know of, maybe. But, you know what I didn't think of, guys? I'm just realizing now. What if like lust and envy and gluttony are also homunculi? Literally never entered my mind. I just thought like they had these like abilities that were innate because of the body that they were, quote, born with. But what if those bodies are like flexible and mutable because they are made from like, alchemy? Oh my God. I don't know how that never occurred to me, that like all of them are like him instead of why isn't he more like all of them? Ugh, I can be really dense, y'all. I really can. Every now and then I am like, how do I make it through the day? So this whole thing, they prove to him that this guy is a homunculi by bashing the top of his head off. And then he just stands back up. There's like an electrical charge that comes out of him and recreates his head again. I couldn't help but laugh at the way that the camera pans over the rest of his crew and their reactions to this like little display. And they all are like varying in their overall like sort of... There's the lizard guy who looks so delighted and excited to get to see this. He's like, yes, I love it. We've got the crocodile guy who's just like grinning because that's what crocodiles do, right? We have the dog dude who looks like kind of taken aback. Like either he has never seen this demonstration himself before or he's just still not really used to it yet. I don't know. But overall, it was just fun to see the way that everybody responds to it. So yeah, this is the guy from the middle poster, right? You guys can tell me, right? Because he's got that fucking thing going on with his collar. And he has that like smile to him. This is him. So he says nothing is impossible. And then we have the whole, let's skip the chit chat. Tell me your secret. This seems like the perfect recipe for immortality to me. And this is when he says, I'm greed. I want everything you can think of. Money and women, power, sex, status, glory. And of course, I crave eternal life. And Al says, aren't you already immortal? And he says, I was put together a little sturdier than most. I'm nearly 200 years old, but I wouldn't exactly say I'm immortal. I've spilled my guts all over, told you my darkest secret. Now it's your turn. How'd you get your body? This was really surprising to me. I thought this would be more common knowledge. And thankfully, Ed says this later. Ed is just kind of like, there was a whole laboratory full of dudes like this. Did you not know about that? Like, this is not that unusual a situation as it turns out. And I really, really enjoyed the fact that he brought it up because I was sort of wondering myself. But yeah, they're like, why don't you just make it easy and tell? But Al is like, I wish I could, but genuinely, I do not remember because I didn't do the transmutation. And Greed says, well, that's no problem. I'll just ask the person who did. Basically saying, I'm going to go after Al. Or Ed, sorry. And Ed is in the street and this fucking lizard guy is like, I'll tell you where he is, but first tell me your secret. And fucking the next scene is Ed tossing the guy covered in like bruises and bumps and bandages through the door going, where the fuck is he? And this was such a good tough guy moment. I really did enjoy it. He's not playing here, okay? And this dude is talking about, he shows, this was so funny, guys. He shows Ed the tattoo. And Ed says an Ouroboros tattoo. And he says, aren't you observant? And I'm like, you literally held your hand up. You know, this is like guys in TikTok videos who have nail polish on. And they just have to show you that they have nail polish on before they do anything else. So anyway, this dude is trying to like talk about how advantageous this body is. And he doesn't understand why Al would ever want to get his body back. Because this is like way better. and he feels like it's weird. And honestly, when he starts to talk about some of the like perks, he kind of had me on his side for a second there. But Ed is really upset at the suggestion, you know, and just is like, you have no idea what he has fucking gone through since like losing his body. You do not understand. And they begin to fight. Guys, the rage like moment that we see from Ed as he is threatening all of them. And I love the like anime effect of the wind blowing past them as he screams at them. This is so funny. I'm going to crush you. I'll smash you. End you. I won't give you, slime, anything. In other words, there won't be an exchange with you. Scum! And then he comes back to himself, and Greed just like sort of dumbfounded just starts applauding. It doesn't even feel like a sarcastic slow clap. It genuinely feels like Greed is like, wow, you were really mad. Pfft, shit. I don't know why, but that fucking killed me. That was so funny. So they decide that they're going to try and fight Ed. And we have Sword Guy. And Ed says, you're a lot slower than a prisoner I know. And just like flattens him. And here comes Greed. At first, Greed has got the upper hand. You know, he is able to create this shield that Ed cannot penetrate. He asks one of his people to take Al out of there, and that way they can dismantle him and figure things out for themselves or use that against Ed, whatever. You can't scratch my ultimate shield. And all of these things that Ed is doing, eventually he like gets his legs around the guy's throat and manages to like, I don't know, slit his throat or something. But the guy just straightens up and is like, that really hurt. That would have sent most people to the hospital. And this is when he says, my healing powers and my ultimate shield do set me apart. You're never going to beat me. I suggest making a deal. And then he like turns into his other form, I guess. He can cover his entire self with this shield. I love when he's like, it covers my handsome face, so I try not to wear it that much. But he's got these really crazy teeth, and his hair disappears, and his ears disappear. He's got kind of a like Vision thing going on. You know how Vision doesn't have ears, but he's got like these gears sort of on top of his head. And he is like, you're not going to be able to beat me when I'm like this. So as this is all happening, Sig has found the broom that I think Ed dropped or Al dropped in the street. And Izumi, that's her name, right? Figures out where they went. Somebody saw them like walking down an alley. And she goes in pursuit of them. We cut back to Al, who is bleeding. It's pretty bad. He's like really fucked up. There's like a smear of blood behind him that suggests a pretty severe like wound to the torso, to his back or something. I don't know. And he's continuing to fight despite all of this. This guy picks him up by the head, literally, and chucks him across the room. But eventually, Ed figures out that this guy cannot simultaneously use his protective armor and his healing ability. And Ed begins to like get the upper hand on him and is able to like punch through certain areas. And it is really fun to watch whenever Ed manages to like figure a person out and their weaknesses out. So yeah, at one point he keeps on pulling like spikes out of the ground the way that he does. And then they get interrupted by Izumi. What is it? I feel like I just said it. Izumi? Kazumi? Izumi? It's Izumi, right? Ugh, I'm so mad. I don't remember her name. I'm so sorry, everybody. But this dude like straightens up at one point and is like, how much longer can you keep this up in your condition though? You're fucked up. And then the door blasts open. It is Izumi. Okay. And she comes in and she has a dude by the back of the shirt that she literally flings at Ed, and she begins yelling at him with no like concern for this fucking creep that's standing there in this armor. And this guy says something like, ugh, give me a break. You're not going to try and start something, right? It's no fun fighting women. And then she grabs him by the face, electrocutes him, and then turns and kicks him into the wall. And he is delighted, loves it. And he stands up and says, what the hell are you? And she yells, a housewife! Credits. 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 Guys, I can't believe that they did that to me. I can't believe they did that to me. They ended it there. Oh, I'm so mad about it. I'm so mad. I'm never going to get over that. I swear to God. Ugh. I love it. I'm so mad. I feel like this episode went by faster than any of the others. And I mean, it could literally have a shorter running time. You know, I don't know. But it felt really short to me. And I was just so frustrated because I want to know what happens. Al isn't saved yet. I hate all of this. Damien says, imagine us waiting a week for that. Ugh. I always think about that when I'm covering stuff is like, you know, it's irritating for me to have to wait, but so much of the time, unless it's a book, books, everybody got to speed right through that shit. You know, I didn't. But shows, most of the time, if people watched it while it was out, they had to wait, unless it's like a Netflix series or something. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. I don't know, like they took Al away. I don't know if they have like an actual second location or if they're just sort of outside in the alley with him or what. I don't get what Greed's deal is either. Like, I would have thought that Greed would have the reach to be aware of the other armors populated by human souls that existed. So I guess I just think these beings are like more powerful than they actually are. It seems like I'm consistently overestimating what they can do. I don't know. All right, I'm going to wrap up, but thank you all very much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. And thank you very much to Max for commissioning this. I hope you guys are enjoying the coverage, and I will see you again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.